Over the past year, I went to sleep with my mouth taped. At first, this sounds a bit weird. I promise you, this is not some sort of fetish fantasy. But it has a lot of benefits and has drastically improved my sleep. I'm always open to any ideas that can actually improve my life. Well, sleep is a third of our lives, which dictates the quality of the other two thirds. We already know that sleep is just vital in anything we do. Sleep improves our just overall health, causes us to live longer, improves our productivity, and drastically makes us feel a lot more happy. Let's also know that an average person breathes about 25,000 times per day, which is 30 pounds or 13 kilograms in and out of our lungs every single day. Now, if you're anything like me and always notice yourself breathing through your mouth, studies show that mouth breathing can cause abnormal facial growth, in some cases as bad as this, can cause ADHD, can cause high blood pressure, can worsen asthma, can worsen our dental hygiene, and can deprive blood flow to the brain. Breathing through our nose is simply the evolutionary superior way of breathing. The mucus and hairs on the inside of our nose helps us to filter and humidify the air which we breathe and warm it to body temperature before entering our lungs. Okay, first things first, let's talk about my experience with it. So I always had a snoring problem since I can remember, and I always used to wake up with my mouth being really dry, and then sometimes I wake up halfway through the night just to drink some water because my mouth is really dry. Since starting to mouth tape, I stopped waking up with a dry mouth and a bit of a sore throat. Okay, the explanation here, mouth breathing causes us to have a dry mouth, meaning that bacteria can actually grow inside it. And cause, for example, for me, like my throat, my glands are always quite sensitive, so I get sore throat quite easily if I just do stupid stuff. And since starting to tape my mouth, like, that has drastically reduced. Next thing is snoring. So I've more or less completely stopped snoring. As before was a fairly, not, I wouldn't say a big snorer, but I did snore definitely, and then now I snore either very little or I just don't snore at all. I guess it's quite easy to snore through your mouth, like, but I guess through a nose is a bit more difficult. So clearly it's possible, just a bit more difficult. But since starting to mouth tape, like, my snoring has more or less gone. Then the next thing is better quality of sleep. Okay, this is very subjective because I didn't have a Whoop or an Oura Ring or didn't really track anything with my Apple Watch, but since starting to mouth tape, I wake up just a bit more refreshed and a bit more like ready to tackle the day, which I definitely didn't have before starting to mouth tape. Okay, again, this makes sense because nose breathing promotes better oxygenation and airflow, so that when I do wake up after just breathing from my nose for the whole night, like, I do feel a bit more rested. A fourth thing is nasal congestion. Before, it was always quite difficult for me to breathe in from my nose. It felt as if I couldn't get enough oxygen into my lungs. My nose just felt a bit congested. I had to start to nose breathe and tape my mouth before going to sleep. And the other thing I started doing is going for runs, but only breathing from my nose when I do go for runs. And all of that combined made it just a lot easier for me just to breathe in through my nose. It felt as if my nose was just better at taking up air, so I didn't feel like I was slightly suffocating. This makes sense because nose is like one of those use it or lose it kind of organs, meaning that the more you use it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more efficient it becomes. And the next thing is carry over into other areas of life. And overall, since starting to tape my mouth before sleep, during my waking time, I'm more conscious if I start to breathe from my mouth and just have like my mouth open like this. I realized this and I'm like, okay, cool, Jarek, close my mouth and just breathe in from my nose. So some other benefits which I didn't actually mention in the description above. So the first thing is actually oral health. Okay, so keeping mouth shut with a bit of tape can actually protect the gums and teeth from excessive drying. This dryness can contribute to a variety of dental issues such as gum disease, tooth decay, and just overall bad breath. Nose breathing, on the other hand, helps us to maintain adequate saliva production, supporting oral health and reducing the risk of dental problems. So nasal breathing promotes the release of nitric oxide. Basically, it's a molecule with various health benefits. It helps to dilate blood vessels, improve oxygen uptake in the blood, even has some antimicrobial properties, which helps us fight infections. And on top of this, nitric oxide can even help with improved learning and cognition. And in some cases, mouth tape can even be used as part of a treatment for sleep apnea, which is quite interesting. Human actually made a podcast about all of this, so you should check it out for extra detail. So how do we actually start? Well, you can get some fancy mouth tape, but in reality it's just expensive and just unnecessary. So what I get is some microfiber tape, which is just quite cheap and you can just find on Amazon. And everything you need is like just a tiny strip. It basically reminds us to keep our jaws shut to make sure that we're breathing through our nose instead of our mouth. So I basically use about like this amount and then just put it over my mouth like this. And yeah, that's about it. Nothing crazy. Yeah, and then for me, especially for the first couple of days, maybe even a week, I did feel like very claustrophobic because it just felt so just foreign for me to breathe from my nose, like when going to sleep. But yeah, over time, like when you get a bit more comfortable breathing through your nose, like all those kind of like this claustrophobia will just subside. This should be like the extra 20% on top of your good sleeping routines and habits. And obviously, like mouth tape, you can't magically just make up for you having 2 hours of sleep. Okay, so let me just show you how I go to sleep. This is exactly what I have. Again, I got earplugs because I just don't like to hear anything when I go to sleep. Then I have a bit of mouth tape, and I got a nose strip just to dilate my nostrils a bit, and an eye mask. I used to have one of those like plastic nose dilators, but I found them just being a bit too uncomfortable for me. Editing this video, this all looks a bit much, and you'd be right. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.